Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Welcome to Game Plan for Retirement, presented by Chris McIntire, Northwest Ohio's retirement planning resource.
And welcome into the program. This is your Game Plan for Retirement with Northwestern Ohio's resource for a common sense approach to planning for our financial, investment, and retirement future. He is president and founder of McIntire Retirement Services, Chris McIntire. Chris, always a pleasure as you join us and help us to better understand and uncomplicate the financial and investment world. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, good morning, Peter. Good to be with everybody.
I think, Chris, a lot of people pretty reasonably nervous about the market, but also at the same time, pretty appreciative of what we've seen so far this year.
It has been a surprising year, I think, to a lot of people because everybody had been forecasting recession. And it's almost like the recession that hasn't come yet that they've been forecasting, after all the interest rate increases. And not to say that there isn't some slowdown going on there, but I really think that the core inflation is, after all those interest rate increases, is really starting to wane and prices are coming down. So, hopefully the Federal Reserve doesn't have to inflict much more economic damage to put that inflation, what do we want to call them, put the inflation devil back in his place.
Yeah, well, we are paying more. We're still paying more for things. I don't think prices are going to go back down, but at least the rate of increase seems to have slowed or held pretty steady temporarily. And Chris, we do appreciate that. Although if we're shopping for a mortgage or running things on credit cards, we're paying a little bit more due to all of those interest rate increases. These are just part of the factors that we need to consider when looking at the financial, the economic landscape, the strength of the markets, and what we are doing with those retirement accounts. But ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to get a plan put together to make sure that each and every dollar is doing its job, working its hardest for you, you are always welcome to be in touch and give Chris McIntire and McIntire Retirement Services a call. 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Chris, when we went through the first part of this year and the conversation was, as you mentioned, recession, it's coming. Is that a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, or does the market have kind of an uncanny ability to do the exact opposite of what everybody expects it to do at some time?
Well, yeah, and sometimes it's so forward thinking that, we live in the moment, the market lives down the road a little bit, if you will. And
it's already priced in the future.
Yeah, correct. I don't think anybody would be shocked if they raised interest rates at least one more time here in 2023 and potentially even two. And if we turn the clock back about 12 months ago into the summer of 2022, a lot of people were saying that, all right, they're going to raise rates and, get inflation under control, and then they'll cut interest rates in the later half of 2023. And that certainly does not look like that's going to be the case this year. We'll see what happens going into 2024. Maybe, I think their whole perspective would be to get inflation under control and then maybe bring down the cost of borrowing money so that we don't go into a severe recession. And, the unfortunate part about raising interest rates like that is, it affects people, that have the least amount of income more so than it does those at the top of the economic ladder, if you will. And, and you're seeing that there was an interesting article in the Wall Street Journal recently about the lines at amusement parks like Disney, for example, are certainly, the crowds aren't there like they once were. And maybe that has some sort of impact on, I can't imagine the cost of a family of four to go to Disney World.
It is expensive. I will let you know that, or any of the theme parks, a little bit more than they used to be. Certainly. I mean, you're talking about a big chunk of the monthly budget to go and take what is really a day trip or a nice vacation costing a lot more. So that is something that we've got to factor in. If we look back 20 years ago to today, well, those same kind of price increases may in fact continue to happen into the future over the next 10 to 20 years. What if during that time we are retired? What if during that time we are experiencing market volatility? What if during that time we've got to factor in changes in the tax rates and brackets and tax increases? All of these things, Chris, that make retirement planning so difficult. Awfully glad we have you there as a resource, but there are some time-tested practical fundamentals for handling some of these things, specifically when we are talking about the potential for volatility in the market. And Chris, the optimal time to do that is now, really, when we are at the top, not panicking and reacting when we are in the midst of that volatility.
Yeah, and you may see some of this evolve as we work our way into like September, which is historically one of the more volatile months. And, I believe if we look at the last 4 years in September, it was a negative month in a couple of those years, fairly significant. And so that is, one of the historic precedents. The third year of a presidential election cycle is historically the best for the stock market. September is still historically one of the worst performers. So this year, as the tech sector has led the way with the market and probably has made the S&P 500 look more like if we would remove the top 5 tech companies out of the S&P 500, its performance would certainly be lagging it very significantly. But as we work our way into September or whatnot, Peter, we could certainly, anticipate people taking some gains off the table from their tech sectors, and then maybe moving and putting that back into the, kind of the boring stocks, the dividend payers, the utility companies, and, just to try to take some of the risk off the table a bit.
And depending on, Chris, not only where the market is, but where we are in our timeline and lifespan and financial progress also has a significant bearing on the approach that we should take to, yes, the growth that we need and the risk that we have to take to get it, but also the preservation and protection strategies we may want to put in place.
No question about it, Peter. You and I always talk about having safe money strategies, and we typically have that for every client that we have, just in case, like in, a 2022, for example, where we get a double whammy, stocks and bonds fall, that we have another alternative. And, now with the interest rate environment, there are even more safe alternatives that we have available where, hey, we can make a fair rate of return without any risk whatsoever, from your bank CDs to money market accounts to traditional fixed annuities, just even for some short-term 2 and 3 year pieces, like we haven't had before. So it's getting a little bit easier out there for some of the portfolio construction that we utilize.
Yeah, pretty attractive right now, Chris, with the interest rate environment, something that we have not been able to say for 10, 15, 20 years almost.
Yeah, no question about it. And, I think it's probably just more normalized right now. They just got there awfully quick. And I think we would all agree, all right, I'll take a little bit less on my money market account. So for inflation to go back in the jar quite a bit, because, I've been meeting with clients here lately. And what I've been hearing is, a constant theme is, we go out to a restaurant, and even if we're just getting lunch, we're spending upwards of almost $100 on lunch, and my wife and I went out to eat just recently, and I don't drink. She had one cocktail and it was like $90 with a tip. And I had a Caesar salad, with a piece of salmon on it. And she had a bacon chicken wrap and one drink and some French fries. And that was $90 with tip. How can that be?
Yeah, the 100 is the new 20, it seems like, Chris. And we're all having to deal with it. You mentioned how quick we got there. Do you think that the pace of those interest rate increases, despite the fact that we are right now, probably, again, as you mentioned, more at a historical normal interest rate level, how quickly we moved from those historic lows to where we are now was a shock to the system that created some ripple effect and some difficulties.
No question about it. And we're still going to be feeling those impacts because, if you've got a variable rate mortgage, it has, come up significantly. If you bought a new home, the amount of, debt service inside that, the monthly payment has gone up significantly. Used cars, all of those financing that, again, talking about, the folks that don't have the significant incomes to combat inflation, you're seeing, car loans defaulting now, credit card debt increasing substantially. So they have to be very careful. The Fed I'm talking about here has to be very careful so that they don't create a bubble, that could be credit card debt, for example. And, a lot of that if you think about it from an investor standpoint, that credit card debt, just like they did with house mortgages, that stuff gets sliced up in tranches, they call it, and gets sold off to investors, and they buy, some of the debt and get an income off of it. So we don't want that to get out of hand where there's a significant amount of defaults. And, I think, the student loan debt relief doesn't look like that's going to happen. So some of those folks, probably, they were promised it was going to happen by the current administration. And then apparently the Supreme Court believes that was an overreach of power. I'm not here to make an argument whatsoever, but, imagine you had $60,000 of student loan debt and you were paying $400 a month, and all right. And you voted for somebody that said they were going to get rid of that. So you started spending that money knowing it was coming down the road, and now it isn't. So, I've seen some interviews with some young folks, but, that's again, a squeeze on the economics of all of this. And we're not here arguing student loan debt, just the economic impacts that it could have for, and it's a couple $1 trillion.
Yeah. But again, these are the challenges of our modern world, our modern economy, the financial factors, variables, elements that we have to consider in planning. And wherever you're at, you should have a plan, ladies and gentlemen. You should have a plan for today and the next phase moving forward in your financial life that addresses income, investments, taxes, healthcare, legacy, your financial goals specifically. Those are the type of issues that Chris McIntire helps to formulate, implement, execute, and monitor the plan for you on your behalf, right along with you. Wherever you're at in your progress, you can benefit from the service and the insight, the experience of a qualified advisor. Chris McIntire, McIntire Retirement Services, here as your resource, with offices conveniently located in and across Northwestern Ohio. Give a call to get that conversation started if you would like to review your investments, your retirement accounts. 800-868-1194, the number to call, 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. The true value of placing that call and having those conversations is you can get the document in your hands, the written plan, the game plan for retirement that Chris McIntire offers to put together, no cost, no obligation. He puts together for each and every one of his clients, and for radio show listeners, that is a service that you can take advantage of, getting that game plan for retirement in your hands. 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. Chris, with all those challenges, the factors that we've talked about so far, I sort of have to wonder if the next 20 years in the market is going to be as easy, as beneficial as the last 20 years have been. Are we going to continue to see this path of relative stability? I know that we went through some challenging times, COVID, the Great Recession, the dot-com bubble, even 9/11 within that bubble. But overall, the last 20 years have been a great period to be an investor, to be a retiree. Is the next 20 years going to look the same? And what may have been a comfortable amount of savings to enter into retirement 20 years ago, where we could sort of just wing it, with that same amount today, we better plan pretty carefully with all of these challenges that we face.
Right, Peter. And, if you take a macro look at it like you did, and you say, okay, from the year of 2000 to 2022, for example, a lot of violent storms, if you will, some rough waters on the lake, being putting a Lake Erie reference to it. But if you look at a micro view of it, and you look at 2022, 2008, 2001, 2002, for example, boy, we did, some of those years were very violent, if you will. We had, COVID, and then the Great Recession, like you did, that took huge government injections of cash to solidify the system. Is that going to continue to happen? At some point, the government's going to back out and let the, a normal recession work its way through an economic system like it has to. And of course, the Federal Reserve can raise or lower the interest rate environment. So I would say that, from that aspect, on the point of view of the Federal Reserve, is now they have the ability to cut interest rates once again, where, they had all cut them down to basically zero for a very long period of time. And if you think of it from an investment standpoint, where did you put money? In CDs that were paying nothing, or, money market accounts that were paying nothing? You had to put it into stocks basically to get some sort of growth. So again, the laws of supply and demand, when there's more money chasing fewer selections, right, prices go up. That might take a little bit for that to ebb and flow, as, hey, I can make, I got there's a Charles Schwab money market account out there that I think the 7-day yield on it's like 4.8% if you're in it for the entire year. That's just a money market account. So it's like, all right, well, how much risk am I willing to take buying equities, which would raise the prices, versus staying where I'm at in some more safer type accounts? So, it may slow things down a little bit, but it'll open up other asset classes. That's probably a good explanation there. It might not be the best for stocks, but it could be good for bonds at higher interest rates, and CDs and fixed annuities and that type of, some alternative strategies.
Well, Chris, there are some fundamentals for long-term investment success. And while results cannot be 100% certain or guaranteed when making investments, these principles that you've got a list of here certainly help to better and increase our odds of long-term financial success. So I know a few of these, but we can always benefit from reminders. And then a couple of these were things that maybe we need to learn again or learn for the first time, but really try to incorporate into our investment strategy. Number one, Chris, invest early, invest often, invest as much as possible. That's one of the secrets to long-term wealth accumulation, building, and preparing for retirement, for investment success.
Yeah, because when you're putting money in and the markets are going down, you're buying shares at lower prices, that dollar cost averaging. And that's just the wonderful thing about being able to invest in a 401k or a 403b at work is that, it comes out of your paycheck and you typically don't pay a lot of attention to it. It goes in, and, it's just one of the few win-win strategies that are out there. You're putting money in on a bi-weekly basis, as most people get paid every 2 weeks. And, it allows you to buy more shares when the markets are down, like in 2022. So you'll be seeing some of that reflection in, your statement values right now. I've got a lot of folks say, yeah, my 401k is doing great this year. It's like, yeah, because you maxed it out last year and put money in, and you bought a lot more shares down low. And now with at least a temporary rally going on here, looks good. That's how it works over the long haul. Investing in the stock market is not a short-term picture. And, Warren Buffett likes dividend paying stocks, and, so do we. We deal a lot with retirees, and dividend stocks have been disappointing for the year of 2023 so far. But since Memorial Day, they've started to trend upward rather nicely, but they held up pretty well in 2022. So, a couple of different ways to run this race. You can run it like a rabbit or like a turtle, and you might end up crossing the finish line at the same time. One was a very exciting ride. The other one might have been a little bit, low and slow, if you will.
I think in retirement, we are looking to transition from, if we have been taking that more exciting ride, more of the slow and steady wins the race type of approach. Chris, just a few more on your list of these long-term formulas for financial and investing success. Make investing routine. That's what you were talking about with the 401k, the automatic contributions. Give it time. As you said, it's a long-term proposition. Pay attention. Be cognizant of the world around you, but also don't panic. Remain calm. Chris, I'm hearing a lot of deep worry right now. I think that there is some element of panic kind of in the investment atmosphere, both for the state of the markets, the state of the country, the strength of the dollar, which the strength of the markets and the strength of the dollar, very different concerns, I think.
Yeah. And, a lot of the conversations I have with clients is, what's going to happen to the dollar if the Chinese currency becomes stronger? And, I think that's going to play out over the course of time. But obviously, the dollar is kind of the benchmark currency. Oil trades in dollars, and some of that is starting to shift. And that's not always bad because, the U.S. can't be the dominant everything all the time. Sometimes competition breeds better pricing and whatnot for investors. So, I don't know that that's something that we really need to sweat. You can't be the king of everything 100% of the time. And, if you look at all the empires in the past, they have all crashed and burned trying to be the king of everything. And I don't think that's what the US's role needs to be.
Yeah, but at the same time, is the rest of the economic world going to rely and trust on the stability of the dollar or some opposing currency? And who can better make sure that there's relative stability with the pricing and the transport and the trade? I think the dollar, while we've seen some shakeup, every time there is instability in the world, Chris, actually strengthens compared to all of those other international currencies.
Yeah, that's a good point, Peter. And I don't know that the all of Europe and kind of your more established economies want to switch over and let China run their currencies because they artificially manipulate their own. And we're seeing right now, they've built cities that no one lives in. And I take that one with a grain of salt there. I think the artificial intelligence piece to all of this, as it begins to shake out and we understand it a little bit more, what is the impact that that's going to have on, financial services, investment strategies, and, what is that going to do to the marketplace? Is it going to put people out of jobs and raise employment, but increase productivity? So there's a lot of give and take here. I think that'll be the theme of 2024 a lot. It will be the role of artificial intelligence. And, I think I'll make a joke here. And, I think maybe we ought to try some real intelligence for a little while too.
Indeed. Well, a couple other intelligent moves for long-term investment success, increasing the likelihood of optimal outcomes with investing, Chris. Have accessible cash, be informed. And the next one, I think, very important, often overlooked. We can certainly benefit from a reminder: rebalance regularly. Can you talk about why that one is so important and so often overlooked?
Yeah. So if we think about it, we go back and look at 2022, stocks fell, bonds fell. And if you wanted to be in a 50-50 portfolio, 50% stocks, 50% bonds, well, stocks fell significantly last year, over what bonds did. And so at the end of the year, if you said, okay, I need to sell some stocks or sell some bonds to buy stocks to get back to a 50-50 standpoint, well, now in 2023, you might be at 65% stocks, 35% bonds because the markets have taken off. So again, you'll want to do a rebalance and get that back into that 50-50, which means, hey, I've taken some of the skin out of the game and put it over here into what is traditionally the fixed income, a little bit of a safer space, and doing that at a higher interest rate. So, that's a huge value there because it keeps your risk tolerance and the volatility of your portfolio, what they call beta, the risk of your portfolio, in line with your overall risk tolerance if you're doing your due diligence and your advisor is as well.
And a few different types of rebalancing, Chris, that ongoing rebalancing, keeping things in alignment. Like if you've ever driven a car that is slightly out of alignment, getting it back to driving straight within the lanes and the guards. That's important. That's what you're talking about there when stocks and bonds sort of drift independently of each other, is that you are going to be out of alignment. And then I know that there is a lot of time optimized rebalancing that you help your clients to identify the need for and execute on as well, meaning we probably shouldn't be investing the same way when we're 40 versus when we're 60. It's like driving on the highway versus the city streets versus school zone. The speed limit changes. It wouldn't be prudent to drive the highway speed through that school zone.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, you kind of take somebody who's 65 years old and they can put some money in a CD or a fixed annuity and make 5% over the next couple of years, that could be very appropriate for them where they're at. They may want to do something for a grandchild who might be 15 years old, for example. Well, you wouldn't want to buy them a CD. You would want them to be in long-term investments like stocks. Yes, they're going to be volatile, but you would certainly want them to have higher growth potential to outpace inflation, not just maintain with it. And, those are conversations I have a lot with. It's easier to change the mind of a grandfather than a grandmother a lot of times.
Well, Chris, I know that, as we talk about these fundamentals for investment success, there is ample justification that some risk is appropriate for the growth that we need for that 20-year, 40-year-old. And as we are accumulating and building so that one day we can have a reasonable expectation of retiring with some level of confidence. But as you've just indicated here, there is also ample reason to have those preservation and protection strategies in place. And I know that you talk about that balance and then help your clients arrive at that appropriate balance, and then try to help them remove some of the emotion from the day-to-day news and jumps and directions of the market by having the confidence of having that plan in place that provides for that balance.
Yeah, you're exactly right there. And looking at your overall financial situation and saying, hey, you know what, you're 70% in stocks, 30% in bonds, but you're at your overall risk score that we just did with you has you as a moderately conservative investor, but you're invested as a moderately aggressive one. Let's talk about some of the other alternatives to get in line with where your overall risk tolerance is, so that the next time the market does take a 15 to a 30% dip, as an example, that you're not that exposed to that you have other strategies in place that are specifically designed for when that happens, that you can make adjustments on your own, or at least ride through it with a lot less emotion involved.
And Chris, I know that you also help clients understand that there are different components of protection and preservation, different types of protection and preservation. There's protection of the assets, principal protection, and then there's also income protection. And as this generation retires and moves through retirement, that income protection is paramount to confidence and quality of life.
Oh, yeah, no question about it. The income planning side to make sure you're covering the basic living expenses out of, guaranteed income elements between Social Security, pensions, other alternatives, that's paramount to a successful financial plan. And, maybe while a husband and alive are alive, everything's going well, but you also have to plan for, the things in life that, have some inevitability to them, where, maybe you lose a loved one and sooner than anticipated. I'm lucky. My mom is 86. My dad is 90 and in relative good health. So they needed to do things to plan for not outliving their money, that they lived a lot longer than they thought. And my dad still likes to go out and eat and golf and whatnot. So, need strategies in case that happens.
Fantastic. Well, no one wants to lose money, but we all know that there is an appropriate level of risk that we need to take in order to get the growth that is necessary for our financial progress. Unfortunately, most don't have a plan to help balance and achieve those long-term goals, and for the confidence that we need as we move into transition and make it through retirement. So how prepared are you for the next 10, 20 years? As always, Chris McIntire makes one big offer on the program, and that is to help you construct and put together that game plan for retirement. If you would like to take advantage of this offer to get that plan in your hands, specific to your goals, your situation, pick up the phone and give McIntire Retirement Services a call, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194, 800-868-1194. 1194. And Chris, in my opinion, the market really has given us a gift with this reprieve and this bounce back recovery that we've seen so far in 2023. So I think now is an ideal time to take advantage of really taking accounts of things, taking stock, not to have a play on words too much there, but to get that plan put together.
Yep, absolutely. And I'll do a play on words there. Sometimes up here on the lake, you have to adjust your sails because the wind changed directions.
Absolutely. Well, now's a good time to do that, ladies and gentlemen. Pick up the phone, give a call. You've got a great resource to get that plan put together. Chris McIntire, McIntire Retirement Services, 800-868-1194. That's 800-868-1194. 800-868-1194. Give a call now. Get that plan put together. Have a more confident quality of life into your financial future in retirement. Appreciate you being here, Chris, as always.
Hey, my pleasure, Peter. Thanks everybody for listening. Have a great weekend out there.
Tune into Chris McIntire's full radio program and visit McIntireRetirementServices.com for many additional valuable resources, including other great episodes of Game Plan for Retirement with Chris McIntire. Be sure to subscribe.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor. Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services. Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.